I'm going to be calling up Dr. Tessie Amore. Dr. Amore is an associate researcher at the University with the Department of Tropical Plant and Soil Sciences at the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, where she has worked in various capacities in the Anthurium and Dendrobium orchid breeding program since 1985. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in Agriculture from the University of the Philippines at Los Banos and her MS and PhD in Horticulture from the University of Hawaii at Manoa under Dr. Haruyuki Kamemoto. And so her presentation, is entitled Anthurium and Dendrobium Breeding Program Research Updates. So Dr. Amore.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, HFNA, for asking me to come over and present. As Dr. Cha mentioned earlier, this is our first time to do face-to-face in over 2 years. So this morning, I'd like to share with you our research updates in our Anthurium and Dendrobium breeding program. So our Anthurium and Dendrobium breeding program is a long-standing program, and we've received funding from HDOA, HFNA, and USDA. Our goal is to collect, maintain, and utilize germplasm. We also we do hybrids to create new hybrids for our programs, evaluate, and eventually distribute new germplasm so that we can replace high-risk flowers and produce primarily foliage and flowers that are brought into the state so that we can eventually support and increase local production. Okay. So anthuriums, let's talk about our first crop. Anthuriums, you've heard this many times, but repetition is good. It's a crop that takes a long time to develop. We'd like to have it develop faster, but it takes about 13 to 14 years from pollination to develop a new variety. Yesterday, we visited a bromeliad breeder, and it took about 14 years to just get a mature plant. So 13 to 14 years for a mature variety is fast compared to 14 years for a mature plant. So everything's relative. Okay. So when we develop our program, when we develop new varieties, we do seedling selections, multiply them, and test it out with growers. So when we test...
Yeah. Now the audio is working. Hold on 1 second.
I'm getting competition.
Hello?
Hi, Dr. Al. So if you'll mute yourself now, and you can hear the presentations. We've got the audio set up now.
Oh, okay. No worries. So as I was mentioning earlier, when we develop new varieties, we work with cooperators who test the selections, what we think are promising new hybrids. And so it goes through the advanced test process with cooperators who give us feedback on production attributes, mainly pests and diseases. Do they see phytotoxicity? Is the production good? And does it perform well in post-production? So when we produce a new variety, we are expected to publish, and it goes in Hort Science. And Hort Science is primarily for the scientific community. So this is not necessarily going out to the floral designers or the other the growers or other consumers of our product. So this goes, the new variety is recorded in Hort Science, so that constitutes an official release. And in August 2021, our new varieties, Kapoho Velo and Honi Honi, was the cover of the magazine, of the journal. Kapoho Velo, or UH-1991, was cloned in, when was this, 2003. And so it took a long time from the time we first selected and cloned it to testing and finally naming and release. It has good yield. It's pretty strong against pests and diseases. And more importantly, it has compact growth and does not tend to form offshoots or keikis. I like to call it its smaller sibling. Honi Honi looks so much like Kapoho Velo, was also released. And more importantly, we've been working with HFNA on what they call the P3 plantlet propagation, trying to get students in elementary, middle school, and high school to get interested in agriculture. And most, not just agriculture, but also ornamental floriculture, because as the statistics have shown, we have aging farmers, so we're always wanting to have new growers come in, and what better way than to start them interested in growing plants in middle and high school. So we're waiting for the go-ahead for DOE, and we will be sending plantlets of Kapoho Velo for our students in the public schools to learn how to deflask and grow anthuriums. So this is ongoing. We were supposed to send it out during the pandemic, but we're waiting for the go-ahead. My student Mark Tanoe out there has been propagating boxes and boxes and boxes of UH-2007 Honi Honi. UH-1991 was used in the wedding celebrations webinar at the time, sponsored by HFNA. And we know that it has great acceptability. Now, one thing that we noticed was that the UH program has released over 50 varieties over the years, but not all 50 are grown. There's probably about 20 that are grown in the market that are available commercially. So the question is, what happened to the other varieties? Why are they not grown? So when we think back, developing a new variety takes 14 years, right? And think about it, if you took 15 years to develop a new variety and it's not even grown. So that means to say there might be some things we might want to tweak with our program. It's like you take 15 years and nobody's going to grow it, or it's not even found in the market. So around 2016, the industry invited researchers, and some of the researchers are here right now, to meet with floral designers so that we can learn what the floral designers want in the product. Oh, we have Joanne too. So a number of us went to that workshop where we were learning what the designers want, and if we handle it, the flowers ourselves, then we know what they're talking about. So that was our aha moment. And I gave a presentation on this experience in 2017 at ASHS, the American Society for Horticultural Science. And Dr. Criley was at that meeting, and he introduced me to a flower breeder from Minnesota, Dr. Neil Anderson, who said, you should be working with AIFD designers because they know what they want, and they will drive the demand for the product, so you can sell the product. So because we were primarily working on objectives that were grower-driven, we did not really consider what the designers wanted, or it wasn't on the top of our priorities for selection. So of course, we want high yield, compact growth, excellent space, and of course, disease and pest resistance. And that's what we received from our cooperators, that kind of feedback. So when we met with the designers, we started to develop a relationship. And the relationship deepened with the annual wedding celebration workshops that were sponsored by HFNA. So once you get to know them, you become more open. So we started sending photographs of our selections to say, is this worthwhile cloning? Would you buy it? And they, in turn, came to the greenhouse and said, oh, these are good, these are not so good. And some of the ones that we thought were good, they said, maybe they were, how would I say it, comfortable enough to say things like, I thought this was a really good selection. Small looks like Centennial. And then this was the feedback we got, too much contrast. Just like Rudolph that took 15 years. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe that's why the designers didn't want it, because there was too much contrast. So now this saves me time, this saves our program time, because if they don't want it, we're not going to put in the effort to clone the variety. So having that relationship really helps. And then early this year, Eric wrote an op-ed in the Star Advertiser. I hope you were able to read it, about the partnership between industry and UH. And we also were reaching out to floral designers to help us fine-tune and make our breeding program more efficient. So we have a professional advisory team of designers. They have been familiar with the Hawaii product because they've been participating in the wedding celebrations seminars over the years. And the professional advisory team helps us in the selection process. They also help in the marketing process by making designs, using their social media, because to be on the professional advisory team, you have to be a trendsetter. So we have educators. So Hitomi Gilliam, for instance, has following in the thousands, and she's educated so many designers. So it's kind of going to be like a chain effect where somebody shows, hey, this is something new and interesting. Other people follow them, and the word gets spread. Think of the telephone game magnified by using social media. So to take this step even further, in July of this year, we participated in the AIFD, that's American Institute of Floral Design Symposium, where the Hawaii team, Team Hawaii, worked with floral designers and the island directors. We have Gordon Inoue, Big Island Director for HFNA, Johnny Gordines, Island Director for Kauai, and Kathleen Yoshinaga, Island Director for Oahu. We all worked together to have the presentation by these designers. And so it's twofold. There was a presentation by the designers who are part of our professional advisory team, in a main stage presentation that was sponsored, Diamond Elite sponsor, HFNA, and the Hawaii Tropical Floral Council. So there was a partner showcase where industry and would showcase their products, and we were fortunate enough to get 5 minutes of fame to announce our new variety, UH-2237 and UH-2245. So UH-2237 is Kathy Ruloda, and UH-2245 is Phil Ruloda. For the younger ones, you may not be familiar that Phil Ruloda appeared in a 2004 promotional video CD that was distributed by HTFC. So he has used the Hawaii product and promoted the use of the Hawaii-grown floriculture products over the years. So it was befitting that we name varieties after him. After all, he has contributed tremendously to the growth of our industry. So at Partner Showcase that was attended by designers all over the US, Canada, and some international designers, there was interest generated by the new varieties. They walked around the convention the whole time, showcasing the varieties. And a few days later, the varieties themselves were featured in the main stage presentation. And you see a bridal bouquet that's made by Brenna Kwan, a stage decoration by Lois Hiranaga, and also a table arrangement by Sutabal Yamaguchi, all of our professional designers. So the program showcased the connection of the designers with growers and also the breeders. The program was well received at the symposium, and it was also picked up by media, social media. Thursday is a European social media outfit, and also the Flower Podcast. So the varieties have been receiving press way beyond Hawaii. In fact, Phil Roloda himself announced he owns the Southern California School of Floral Design, and he announced that the new varieties should be available in a year or so. Now, we'll say, okay, so you have these new varieties. How do we get them done? So let me backtrack first. So this is UH-2237 without the whole in a design. This is one feature that's pretty interesting that you can't see it very well right now, but it is attractive even in its antique or older form. So it has use even as a new flower in the middle or an older flower because the spadix turns green and it's still glossy. Okay, it has reasonably long vase life, and same is true with UH-2245. Joanne runs our vase life, and she said this was about 54 days with or without BA. Perhaps we can ship it if it's going to last that long instead of that. So moving on, and I'll address bear in mind we're talking, okay, so how to get these things out in the field. But in the meantime, let's segue into what do we have in advanced testing, like what's going to be up soon. This is one of our interesting varieties called UH-2555. So it's being propagated so it can be released to the growers. This is, again, UH-2555. I just realized this wasn't the version, my most updated version, but it's okay. Another variety we have is UH-2071 that we are going to be releasing soon. It has a nice deep color. It's an unusually brown-red color that when we went to AIFD, the designers from, I believe they're from Tennessee and Mississippi, they said, and this was interesting, they said this is a great color for the holidays. And I'm thinking, oh, I didn't think of it in that light because I thought it was a darker one. But they said they like this and they already foresee there's a market for it for the Christmas and Thanksgiving onward for the holidays. And I thought, okay, great, we can market it that way. Okay. So now that we have something interesting, we're thinking, okay, so how do we scale up? I'd say 10 or 20 years ago, when we tested, we only gave the growers 200 plantlets to test. And 200 plantlets, and the feedback we got was, how can we run market acceptability tests when you only have 200 plantlets? That's not even enough to pack a box. Plus, they don't mature at the same time. So let's scale it up 5 times. Let's make it 1,000 plantlets per grower, and we're thinking 1,000 plantlets. It takes a long time to clone 1,000 plantlets. So how do we do that? So therefore, because we recognized there were challenges in scaling up from small scale 200 to 1,000, we have to look at other ways to increase the numbers. So let's backtrack. To tissue culture, it took about 36 months to get our numbers, and that's 200 plants. And that's assuming that the plant responds right away when you initiate. We have fast-growing ones, and we have slower-growing plants. So the 36 months is for the ideal. We have some varieties, say for instance, Centennial, where it can be, we're trying to initiate it for over a year before a shoot comes out. So we have slower growing ones. So we're thinking, okay, if we can condense or shorten the period, the ones in blue, the tissue culture, planted compost, transplant to plant, shorten that period from about 4.5 years to even 4 years or even 3 years. There should be ways that we can shorten it so that we can start testing it. And by the same token, by reducing the tissue culture process, we can generate more plants to the grower. So can we do that? So in 2020, we had one of our graduate students completed her thesis on using a bioreactor. And so by using that, she found out on UH-Manoa red, which is a very easy to produce variety, that the total shoots that are produced can be 300%, threefold times by using the bioreactor. So we're thinking, if you can do that with UH-Manoa red, can we apply the knowledge she had found out or she had developed onto other varieties so we can speed up everything? Of course, speeding up everything means there's more work all over. However, the students in the lab were up to the challenge and tried some of our newer selections. So this is UH-2327, an orange selection. We cloned it in 2018, but it was sitting on the background because we weren't quite sure whether or not it was a go or not. Anyhow, when the testing process for the bioreactor was, we were thinking, okay, what else can we put? And we thought, okay, advanced selections. So these in the middle, that's what the bioreactor setup looks like. And these are about a month old from initiation, from the axillary buds. So that's bud development after just 1 month. And this is how it looked about 2.5 months after. And by December, we were getting full-grown shoots. So definitely remember these were buds that were placed in the Rita bioreactor in September, and by December, we have large shoots that are that we can send out. So by using that technique and speeding up just the multiplication process, by June of 2021, we were able to send 1,200 plantlets to our cooperators. So that's even less than a year that we're able to send out the plantlets. And just yesterday, I visited one of the cooperators, and they have that same variety already flowering. So that is very promising in terms of shortening the time between multiplication to getting even first flower. And now with the designers saying they really even want the small flowers, I forgot the term Gordon had for that specific size, then that means that for a 2-year-old plant, you can have something that you can market. Of course, there are price differences, but it's something that can be considered. So if we extend this to our other varieties, we hope to put other materials in the bioreactor that we want to push fast so that we'll be able to release the variety soon. Okay. So hopefully we'll cut down that 4 years to something much shorter. And the same is true for materials that we are going to release so that the growers can grow them. So crossing our fingers that if it behaves similarly, and I think we feel the new varieties, Floriculture and Catharoloda, are fast growers. So crossing our fingers that we do make it in a year or so. So some of the other selections of interest, this is 2053. It's also responsive to the Rita conditions. And this one, we call it one of our designer's choice. Because when the designers came, they had, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one. So 2053 is one of the our designer's choice series, so to speak. And we were able to generate, send about close to 1,200 plantlets to date. One of the interesting selections we have is a cross between Tropic Sunrise and Maui. It's a large flowered one, and it lasts long. And this one was also propagated fast. I think we had some, I'm not quite sure if everything was in the bioreactor, but we were able to transfer about 1,100 plantlets as of this month. Okay, so 2620 is an interesting selection. Even for a small plant, it can produce large flowers, and that in part, we believe, is because of its maternal parent, Tropic Sunrise. Tropic Sunrise produces extra large flowers readily. Okay. This is another selection that we have, another designer's choice that is undergoing, that will be in the bioreactor. And then we have some of these other selections that are of interest that are also going to be placed there. Mark is going to be, this is advanced news, or watch out. He's also working on a different type of bioreactor and will be presenting his results shortly after. In fact, his committee members are here. And so we're looking forward to hearing from him. So we're looking at 2 different bioreactors now to speed up the process. One of these selections that was desired by the designers is the one on the right, UH-2300. They like this because of the color, and it's very similar to another selection we have in advanced test called UH-2265. Okay. Some of the challenges we've had in December 22, just this past December, we had a power outage in our building, and we didn't have AC. And then we had an AC outage again in June. And so one of the challenges we're facing is fungal contamination in our culture room. So we've been in that particular culture room, I'd say about 40% was, we had fungal growth in all different ways. And they're coming out slowly. It's like, oh, you think it's clean, and then we see more and more. And it really has affected the number of plantlets that we can transfer over to cooperators. Okay. Now, let me skip over that. Now, going on to Dendrobium update, as I mentioned earlier that we were visiting some labs, and we do get the message, and we visited Puna Flower Power yesterday. The industry needs plants. We need seed pods. We hear you loud and clear. So we received funding to rejuvenate the parent materials of our UH seed propagated cut flowers varieties. And so we're focusing on UH-800. We hear you. We know you need UH-800 and also UH-1427 Wali Murazani and UH-232 Uni-Y Supreme. So our goal right now is to, as soon as we heard that there was possibility of funding, we did every effort to start rejuvenating our parent materials, but we realized that the potted plant industry is also on the upswing. See, we didn't neglect them, and we also rejuvenated parent materials, specifically our Dendrobium CTAHR, so we can make more seed pods for the industry. So for seed propagated dendrobiums, you need parents to make the seed pods. It takes about 3 months. Unfortunately, it's been very hot, and you need cool temperature to get good seed formation in the pods. So we'll have to wait till the temperatures cool down, wait for the flowers, and I have some pollen in the refrigerator that once the flowers, maternal plants are ready, we can make our seed pods so that they can be turned over and germinated in the local labs. So the parent materials we're really focusing on to rejuvenate are D192, which is the parent of UH-800. We also recognize that some growers still like UH-306, so we are rejuvenating our New Hawaii parent. We have K44-50, which is the parent of UH-232. The 2 inbred white K159 lines are parents of UH-800. And these are the parent, the The one on the bottom, Dendrobium Caesar, is primarily for potted plants. So we're trying to rejuvenate our parent materials. Now, bear in mind that I talked about we're rejuvenating the plants in the greenhouse as well as our in vitro collection. So we have, Mark has been working on this also. We have some of our parent materials in tissue culture. Fortunately, they're still thriving. And we hope to pot them out so that we can produce healthier plants and healthier seed pods. Some of the challenges we faced. The previous year, wind damaged our orchid house, and it took a while for construction to be completed, so the plants we couldn't really enter the construction at the time. And after that house was completed, just last year in February, our almost 30-year-old orchid house was starting to fall apart with falling beams. And suffice to say, this is December 2021, and we were still having problems about the house construction. It recently was completed around May, but we still found problems as late as last month. So we're trying to work around that so we can have even more space to grow out our rejuvenated materials. So to summarize, we have 2 new Anthurium cultivars, Cathy Roloda and Phil Roloda. They were named and released in July 2022, and we have been receiving favorable reviews from the designers. We are aiming to shorten the time to produce plantlets for field testing and cultivar release by using bioreactors. So if we can speed up, then everybody's happy. We also recognize the industry's need for plant materials, for the orchid industry's need for plant materials. So by rejuvenating the materials both in vitro and in the greenhouse, we hope to supply the industry with healthy seed pods. With that, I want to say thank you to HFNA, our cooperators, Joanne, who's here. Thank you for all the being the liaison for the Big Island. And yeah, if you have any questions. Questions? Yes.
I recall the presentation about the use of bioreactors. I think the last time we had
A board meeting. Yes, a student presented.
Of course, I'm very excited about the process. I'm glad to see that being implemented now. Is it effective for other cultivars also, like orchids and other plants?
Okay, we think it may be effective for other plants. We visited a lab in one of the private labs, and they found it effective. It's been found to be effective in banana. I'm not sure about orchids, although the literature, there has been work in Thailand about using bioreactors for orchids. So for now, we've been focusing on orchids and on anthuriums, but definitely it might be worthwhile exploring if we can, say for instance, germinate in the bioreactor, or in terms of cloning, put the micropropagules and see if there's enhanced growth. So I visited Puna Flower Power yesterday, and Gordon was stressing how shipping has increased dramatically just within the past year. And so that certainly shifts the idea of keeping the propagation locally. And if we can hopefully transfer the technology, then that will certainly be something I feel would be a viable alternative to out-of-state propagation.